Welcome back, folks. A UP nonprofit fed its elderly neighbors today. Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly served Thanksgiving meals to seniors who would have otherwise been alone this Thanksgiving. The organization delivered meals to people all over the Copper Country and had several sit-down locations for seniors to eat and spend time together there. The menu included Thanksgiving classics, turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes. I like to call them schmaters. Organizers say the event brought people together.
There's a lot of people in need that live alone and they don't have families or they've passed away or whatnot. And this brings people together that might not have a chance to get together for Thanksgiving and celebrate the holiday of Thanksgiving.
The food was donated by community members and served by volunteers.